Now let's take a look at camera animation. So here I have a simple scene, and let's just go ahead and do a simple camera animation. So I'm going to click on the animation timeline, and again, go to the animation wizard. So when I click on this, you'll see that we have an option for camera animation. So we can do all sorts of things. We can do a dolly, we can do translation, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and do a simple dolly and click next. And in this case, I actually don't have a camera in the scene other than the free camera. So if I don't have a camera in the scene, it gives me the option to add in a camera. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a camera, and this will be camera 1. And then we can just click next. And then for the distance that we want to dolly this, we can dial in any number we want. So in this case, I'm just going to type in a large number, about 100, and hit finish. And now, when this moves, you can see how this is actually moving back a little bit. In fact, if I can go into lighting and turn on performance mode, you might see it a little bit better. You can see how it's actually moving back. Now this scene has a fairly large scale to it, so I'm actually going to need to go a little bit bigger than 100. Let's go ahead and make this 500. And as you can see, that changes it quite a bit. So now I can zoom out. Now, if you want, we can also do a similar effect using something like translation. Now, any timeline that you have in the scene, you can always right-click over it, and we have some options here. We can duplicate things, we can rename it. Another thing we can do is delete it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this animation, and let's go ahead and add in a different type. So I'm going to go into Animation Wizard, and in this case, I'm going to do a translation, and then click Next. And again, I'm going to select camera 1, which we created before. And now we can translate in X, Y, or Z. Well, I don't want to translate in Y because that will move the camera up and down. But let's go ahead and translate it in X. Let's say 150 units. And then let's make this over the course of, say, 2 seconds. Go ahead and hit click Finish. And now you can see that the camera is moving again. Now, if I want to, I can modify this just by clicking on it. So instead of translate X 150, I can also translate in Z 150. And let's see what happens. So now we're moving in Z. Now, this is basically world Z for the camera. And if we want, we can also use negative values. So if I want, I can type in negative 150. And as you can see, we're getting something almost similar to the dolly that we had before. Now, when you do animation, you also will need to render it. And we can render animation just by going into our render menu. And under animation, we can give it the resolution, the number of frames, or a frame range, or a work area. And then we can also give it the output in terms of the names of the files and the file format for the output. Now, typically, it has AVI MPEG-4, but it can also do QuickTime or uncompressed. And if you want, you can also do frame output and just output individual frames. And typically, I like doing it this way because that way, if the render should fail for some reason, you have the frames that were already rendered and you don't have to start from scratch. But you will have to bring it together in some sort of video editor. So hopefully this gives you a good overview of the basics of animation in Keyshot.